Alright, folks, welcome to a special episode of Zork Grand Inquisitor. Nemesis. Whatever this game is. I have decided to basically read the manual, because the manual's got a lot of good stuff in it, and I thought that I should read it to you. So, this is probably the most skippable video in the series, but I am going to flip through most of this manual and read it because it's written in the form of a travel log of a previous investigator of the cursed forbidden lands, which means that it should be a decent, entertaining kind of narrative, and it's filled with little clues on the game. So, it starts off with a Froboz's National Archives piece of paperwork. I wish you could see this, but you can't. Classification, unclassified location, greater underwing, blah blah blah. Archive file number, something, something, something. Contents, journals and effects belonging to Agent L. Bivotar discovered 20 Bloits downwind of the Eastlands, aka the Forbidden Lands. Instructions, by order of the esteemed Vice-Regent Sayovar. To be filed without indexing among the personal papers and memoirs of the Vice-Regent. Sealers to remain undisturbed on pain of severe torture and or dismemberment of any violator. Signed, Flapto Dimtop, Regal Director of Records and Historical Accuracy for the Froboz's National Archives. Then you have another thing from the Froboz's National Archives. By declaration of the esteemed Vice-Regent Sayovar the Strong, this parchment declares that Agent Karlok Bivotar has full rights and authority to act as agent and representative of Vice-Regent Sayovar in all matters concerning the investigation of cases blah 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 of the Bureau of Missing Citizens. Any request for assistance and or information made by Agent Bivotar should be treated with the utmost immediacy. Long live the Vice-Regent. And then it says, referring to the suspicious disappearance of Madame Sophia Hamilton, Bishop Francois Malveaux, Dr. Erasmus Sartorius, and General Thaddeus Kane, respectively, all citizens of importance and stature whose welfare is of the utmost concern of the Vice-Regent and the Empire. That would, of course, be the 4 alchemists. And now we go to this guy's journal. 17th Dismember 947. Most esteemed Vice-Regent Sayovar, my sovereign, I now stand at the outskirts of the Forbidden Lands, prepared to make quick work of this strange and weighty assignment entrusted to me. I was somewhat disturbed that our briefing was hastened by an unexplained urgency. Nevertheless, my objectives are clear to me, as enumerated by your eminence. 1. To determine the whereabouts of 4 missing citizens of prominence. 2. To substantiate the alleged curse of the so-called Forbidden Lands. 3. To investigate rumors of unauthorized magic, black or otherwise, in the region. It is the final element of my assignment that most intrigues me, and, if I read your countenance properly, stands to bear the most significant fruit. That you have ordered my mission through unorthodox procedures and make special requests that I report back to you alone gives me cause to think there may be much to be gained from this adventure. I shall keep these papers faithfully. You have promised great rewards. I should hope so, as, true to its name, the land seems to promise great risk. Your obedient servant, Bivotar. 22 Dismember 947. I am now 3 days' journey south of the northern branch of the Frigid River. The border crossing was well guarded. Even with the scroll bearing Sayovar's signature, the royal militia was reluctant to let me cross. They must have thought me crazy for wanting to journey into the Forbidden Lands. And perhaps I am. I have not yet reached the edge of the desert, but already the signs of devastation are obvious on every side. Immense scars and patches of burnt land are visible with alarming frequency, as if the implementors have tormented the province with an unceasing series of lightning strikes and firestorms. Giant corbies circle overhead menacingly, already waiting for me to collapse in exhaustion. This is no place for the living. Of the hauntings and hallucinations, this much I can piece together. The Grey Mountains slipped into oblivion first, the inhabitants of Frostham complaining of horrible screams and an inescapable stench that pervaded the area. Reports came from the desert river next. Merchants and trading caravans that still moved through the area untouched by the war began to report nightmares and visions so powerful that they lingered for weeks in the minds of the victims. Soon the entire sky over that area became covered with distorted faces and figures, prompting Sayovar to consider forbidding all access to these desolate provinces. Most of the refugees managed to make it out in time. Those who didn't are now dead, or, from what I have witnessed thus far, wish they were. 24 Dismember 947. It is clear to me now that the Vice-Regent's order to make all the eastern provinces outside of his control in forbidden territory was a wise decision. It is doubtful to me if even Sayovar the Strong, dear Yorick, the life of a sycophant, must I call him that even in my personal papers, would be able to defeat the force that has taken control of this land, whether it is truly a curse or simply the latest terrorist tactic of the Enchanters Guild. Moreover, since the fall of the Empire, these lands have been devastated by famine and barbarian invasions of the worst kind. It would be a wasted effort for Sayovar to attempt to recapture these territories in hopes of restoring the great underground empire, just as it is a wasted effort for me to be here now. Civilized life will never again thrive in these territories, a fact undeniably attested to by my unpalatable platypus pot pie, by the unpalatable platypus pot pie I was forced to eat for my dinner last night, if you could call it that. Some sort of evil spirit has come to reside, at least in the gastronomy of this place. That much is clear. 5 Estuary 948. I arrived at the outskirts of Iron Dune, Kane's territory, at dusk yesterday. God is my witness, it's Kane! That's not in the manual. I found only one old woman sitting in the central square, lost in her own little world. She hadn't eaten in days or bathed in weeks. Using a stick to carve lines in the dirt, she preoccupied herself by doodling a vast array of astrological symbols all across the square. I tried to grab her attention, but she simply went on mumbling about the nature of the secret elixir and the philosopher's stone, and praising the unity of all elements. The references to the forbidden alchemical sciences caught my ear, and I pressed her for details. She pretended not to hear me, only gradually answering my own questions by continuing to talk to herself, but I caught a garbled reference to one Dr. Erasmus Sartorius, a.k.a. my assignment 95822. I hurriedly began to copy down the symbols she was drawing in the dust. Before I could finish, she took the pen from my hand and began to sketch the most beautiful, otherworldly drawing. I asked if I could have it, and she took from her bag a roll of parchment filled with her elaborate mystic visions. I've studied them for hours, and don't know what to make of them. They are strangely arresting. 7 Estuary 948. As I make my way through the desert south of Aragain, the desolation of the sand dunes renders this already deserted province nearly unbearable. It seems hard to believe that this desert was not always a wasteland, not until the black magic of 2 ruling egos leveled it. I can see Iron Dune rising up in the distance, surrounded by plumes of black smoke. I see that Elrond wastes no time, and now the general is absent. Perhaps here I will find some... Now that the general is absent, perhaps here I will find some answers that will lead me to General Kane and hasten my return home. My fellow wayfarers, of the unimpressive yet customary sort that you find along the great underground highways of this land, attribute the curse to some dark figure they will only call the Nemesis. The name has surfaced 2 or 3 times now, and with the same dark respect a child attributes to the bogeyman. But these are mawkish, superstitious folks, with not the insight of a Brogmoid between them. I refuse to endure another endless game of Finucci in hopes of eliciting more useless information. 27 Estuary 948. Sayovar. I have spent the past few weeks traversing the territories of Iron Dune, my regent. The endless border disputes between Elrond and Kane over, if you recall, the former Aragain and Desert River provinces seems to drag on without solution, as they have for several decades now. No 2 men have despised each other more. As we imagine, since Kane's inexplicable disappearance, his army has fallen into complete disarray, and even his precious Iron Dune is under siege. And they have a little picture of Thaddeus Kane, who was a general in the Vice-Regent's Royal Militia, liege at Iron Dune. And, yeah. Yet perhaps more remarkable than the despair of Kane's army is the lamentable state of Elrond's. Elrond's armies have fallen utterly out of his control. Every man has fallen prey to the sickness that pervades this land, from his highest generals to his lowest foot soldiers. Large numbers of soldiers have fallen upon one random village after the next, like packs of wild wolves. These hordes seem to be driven by a force almost outside of themselves, moving in directions and committing atrocities that even they do not understand. What inhabitants remain in the region keep hidden behind their boarded-up doors. I try to enlist them in conversation, but they are too frightened, and most of what they say makes little sense. I have kept some record. Since the Nemesis began to visit us, I no longer fear the devil. Blood runs in the streets where he goes. The madness begins later, and hallucinations, unspeakable atrocities written in the dunes, the dirt, the skies. The first one to die was skinned alive by his own tent mate as he screamed about the lady and a lover. Please, that's all. Andrew Bogg, for Port Boozle. I love the skies here at night. You see such beautiful things. That woman is the most stunning sight I have ever seen. But the darkness, it stalks her. I witness her murder again and again, every time I dream. In the morning my pillow is wet with her blood. Is there nothing you could do to save her? Aurelia Commoner, Frigid River Valley. The general was a good man, a family man. If he knew what was happening in his own lands with his own people, it's a bloody shame. Spooks or not, the old empire has fallen. F.B. Punkata, Zilonika. I do not see the things they see. I cannot help but wonder why it is that I have been spared. The sickness that pervades this place has passed me over. I fear it is only a matter of time. 2 February 948. I have reached the castle Iron Dune and was surprised to recognize the castle from among the madwoman's sketches. What to make of this I do not know. Clearly the sickness has preceded me here. Elrond's armies have pushed what is left of the resistance all the way to the southern reaches of Famathria, across the southern branch of the Frigid River and within sight of Kain's ancestral castle. No one here knows what the final goal of that insane and rebellious army might be, nor exactly what the siege of his castle will accomplish. Still, the black smoke of battle grows thicker every day. It was not difficult to slip past Elrond's troops undetected, but when I reached Iron Dune, I discovered a most amazing thing. The majority of Kain's troops aren't even convinced that the general has disappeared at all. It appears Kain, who, as you no doubt will recall, invented Thadium, remains equal parts scientist and general. He maneuvers his troops through an elaborate system of remote radio codes of such a sophisticated nature that I have been unable to decipher them. All that I know is this: the codes seem to telegraph Kain's instructions on any given day, provided the soldier can identify himself with the given cipher for that day. If I progress any further with this intelligence, I will forward it immediately. I sense that information of this nature would be entirely too dangerous to carry on my person. 10 February 948. I stumbled upon an old castle guard today, raving mad and desperate to talk. Such is my luck. He spent all morning lecturing on the minute differences between each of the general's many suits of armor. I wanted to borrow a knife from one of the scabbards and slit his throat. Luckily for him, the scabbard was empty. Unluckily for me, he continued on with his deranged show and tell all afternoon, trying to convince me this one repugnant little antique dog was actually some sort of weapon. And I am Lord Flathead, and you are Yorick himself. Apparently this toothless old hungus has known Kain since he was a boy. Note, General Kain does seem to inspire this type of fervent fealty in all those who serve under him. The guard, no less inclined, pressed these photographs into my hands as I begged me to bring his beloved liege back to him. And we've got photos on the other side of characters from the game. I recognized some of the figures in the photographs on the society page, the New Zork Times, etc., but I realized I had never seen the young man, whom the guard confirmed to be Lucian, Kain's only son. Why this Lucian had never been present in any of the regional councils on war, governance, or taxation, that, as the heir to Iron Dune, he would have been overwhelmingly likely to attend with his father, I could only speculate. The guard recalled that he was either an artist or a dentist of some significance. In either case, I am thinking that he may have gone to practice at some foreign clime, perhaps the Westlands. I must find this Lucian Kain. I am convinced he will lead me to the general. Lady Kain, whom I have determined to be in seclusion in Antaria, has a well-documented history of poor health and cannot be disturbed. Iron Dune, once a frontier post in the great campaign of Duncan Thrax in the 7th century, is the ancestral home of her family, and falls to Kain by marriage, not blood. So we see the great war hero is perhaps as shrewd as he is strong. And now we've got a picture of Madame Sophia Hamilton, and some stuff, and basically says, musician, headmistress of Frigid River Branch Conservatory. 15 February 948. I came across a single photograph of a beautiful woman whom I have determined to be Madame Sophia Hamilton, concert musician and headmistress of the Frigid River Branch Conservatory, not to mention case file 95820 of my quest. The possibility that I might discover the nature of the connection between the Honorable General and the cultured Madame leads me north to the Frigid River at once. The potential nature of their connection is a subject upon which decorum forbids me from further speculating at this time. Suffice it to say that the General, too, is a widely noted expert in the usage of a variety of instruments. 17 February 948. The Frigid River is just that. Question: how many grooves does it take to screw in a light bulb? Ha ha. And there's a little note on the side from the desk of Bivitar. Things to do when I get back. File report. Write to cousin Antax. Visit mother. Mine. Get new styling gelatin for oily hair. Take a bath. Mail curse day cards. Belated. Get the new Sound Dungeon album. And buy Yipple Kibble for Peppy. 25 February 948. I finally reached the conservatory today. A second startling discovery. The madwoman, with her peculiar alchemy, must have anticipated my journey, for the exact likeness of the conservatory appears in her imagery, just as Iron Dune did weeks ago. The atmosphere of this imposing structure hung heavy and still, and I saw that it had fallen into disrepair since the disappearance of its ruling madame. I felt strangely sympathetic to her, as if being in her rare, cultured world could show me something of her refined presence, or teach me something of her expert knowledge. If I stood for a moment listening, it was almost as if I could hear lingering melodies from years ago. I felt for her, a moment, a strange sadness. I believe time is not so fixed in this place as elsewhere, though I know here, as everywhere, the old must eventually be replaced with the new. Then the oddest thing happened. A darkness came over me, a feeling of utter fury, a kind of hatred I have never before known. I screamed, I could not help myself, and found that the sound I heard was not my voice, but the roar of a great beast, a demon in a murderous frenzy. I heard the sound of glass breaking, and I looked up to see a cleaning woman. She backed away from me, making the sign of Yorick over her breast, and whispered, "Nemesis." Perhaps the curse of this land is working upon me yet. It is difficult to stay untouched. 2nd of Arch, 948. As I journey, certain events in past months take on new significance. I remember a routine surveillance day at the Convention of Enchanters, 106. The conversations and seminars were typically dry, ranging from such droll topics as the propriety of using Knitfall, conversation with beasts, to gain information on competing guilds, or the dungeon's dangerous side effects of impurity in Fubal potions, intended to increase muscular coordination, but also known to act as a most potent laxative. Between sessions, however, I overheard in hushed conversation a word even the Vice-Regent would not speak: alchemy. My sources at the Enchanters Guild, which include members of the Circle of Enchanters, were tight-lipped about any new developments of significant information, so I failed to include this reference in my report. In retrospect, however, their forced silence on the subject reinforces my suspicions that the Renaissance here may reveal more than I expect. Alchemy. What did that madwoman know of my purposes in this dark land? What has her alchemy to do with the reports of a great power gathering in the Eastlands? I studied those symbols again and again and can make no sense of it. And off to the left, there's some information on the Frigid River Conservatory. I don't think I'm going to read it, because it's not really amusing, but it's meant to give us clues, probably on... it looks like there's going to be a puzzle involving musical instruments in the conservatory section. Anyway, moving on. 7 Arch 948. I am very tired, and cannot write much this evening. I attended a concert today in the nearby town of Zorokesh. I suppose no one is to blame, considering the general chaos in the land, but without Madame Sophia, there was no violin in the local Zorkestra, and the traditional closing anthem could not be played. As a result, the concert continued on most tortuously for 17 additional hours. The sun set and the night grew progressively darker. Children wept and then slept in the thick stupor of utter boredom, and finally so did their parents. It was at that point that I crept away from my seatmates in board box C, and when determined to retire, perhaps they are sitting there still. 11 Arch 948. I found this program, but do not know what to make of Bishop Malvo's appearance in it. General Kane, Madame Sophia, and now Bishop Malvo, all in association. And he gives the numbers of their murder cases. I'm beginning to suspect foul play, some grand conspiracy, but cannot determine why they would be abducted until I discover what it is that makes them so valuable to this Nemesis, if he is indeed responsible. I will make passage to the Stepanthrax Monastery and see what I can learn of the good monk Malvo. I've purchased a copy of his best-selling Revelation in Eternity, which has led many thousands of Quindorians to return to Zoroastrian fire worship, and which I fully expect to be rehashed New Age garbage for the fickle, yipple-brained masses. I will read it on the road, the things I do in the name of Sayavar, and hopefully a promotion and vast riches. And then we've got the dossier on Bishop Francois Malvo. His employment is Bishop of Zork, Stepanthrax, Zoroastrian Monastery, author of Revelation and Eternity. 15 Arch 948. The heat here is unbearable. I spent the better part of the day lost in the rolling of the dunes. Just as I was despairing of ever finding a way out, I came across a wandering band of monks, a dozen of them maybe, dancing in circles around a fire in the sand. They were a strange bunch, singing aloud in some ancient tongue, throwing little scraps of metal into the fire, yelling out poems of praise to the fire gods. It's hard to believe people ever thought the world was flat, let alone that it rested on the head of a giant brogmoid. Then again, it's hard to believe that anyone would pay a Zorkmid for that fire rubbish. I was reading last night, but I've heard of people dropping quite a few Zorkmids on the way to the temple. Even the implementers have their price. The monks did not run from me, unlike most of the people in this horrible land, but were in fact quite friendly. It soon came out through conversation that they had come from the very monastery I seek, some several hundred bloits to the southwest, among the mountains on the Stepanthrax Peninsula. All of these monks were unanimous in their praise for Malvo. They called him a great man, a genius akin to the gods. They assured me that his powers of alchemy had destined him for immortality. Alchemy. My thoughts returned to the strange symbols drawn in the sand, but they would say no more on the subject, and passed the rest of the night plying me with tales of Yorick and the fires of hell. I found them strangely compelling, and have tried to reconstruct what I could from recollection. The Descent of Saint Yorick. The story goes something like this. The merchant Yorick, a simple man, grows dissatisfied with his simple trade, his simple gods, his simple life. He praises the implementers and hears nothing. He doesn't take it personally. He understands he's just yippledung to them, a little man amongst little men. So he does what any logical fellow would do, and follows the sullen, lowly sod of a daemon down to hell to speak with the devil. Quite reasonably, he assumes the devil, being the devil, would keep less exclusive company, and he's right. Only standing between Yorick and his devil is this totally horrific, fire-snarled demon, a major demon, the grand demon of them all, the great demon of the threshold, and I believe a ring of hell's fire. There absolutely is fire, I am now remembering, because that's what next has to happen. Yorick's demon pulls out a ruby shield and passes through the flames untouched, but Yorick, oh yea, with the faith of a hungus, loses his nerve and lets go of the magical shield and is burnt. As a whole throng of demons gathers around him to heckle and jeer his imminent incineration, Yorick seizes his opportunity, steals a like shield from the side of a careless demon, and dashes through the flames unscathed. Then, armed with the simple blade of a simple merchant, Yorick slays the great demon of the threshold in surprise, and makes his way down to the devil, who, reasonably amused, teaches Yorick the great mysteries of the cosmos. That's really about it. Yorick spends the rest of his life making good sense out of hell, and finally, when his natural life draws to a close and he finds himself creeping upwards to the implementers, the seraphim and the cherubim, the harmony and the ecstasy, seems strangely floored and overwrought. He stays to talk a while with the implementers, finds them likable enough in their own way, and then politely requests that he be returned to the company of his good friends in the underworld, citing differences, both aesthetic and philosophical. The implementers resist until Yorick, brandishing his sword and the bronze shield with the 5 fire rubies, hacks a path through the happy fields where joy forever dwells, as never heard of again, though his vast knowledge of things above and below, as scripted in the many books of Saint Yorick, is truly enlightenment of a most sensible sort. Okay, not sure what that's all about, folks. 21 Arch 948. I am, by this time, not surprised to discover that the madwoman Sooth had predicted my current destination in her eerie drawings. As I wandered through the monastery at Stepanthrax, I stopped upon a stone staircase to look over the arresting view. The landscape, broken by volcanic formations, seemed to reflect the unrest I was feeling at the very moment. The unrest of the curse. A simple man seeking answers like the good Yorick himself. I made my way into an empty office and found several volumes on alchemy. The subject returns to me once again. It seems to be the common link, but I do not understand it. The monks here are mourning the departure of their dear bishop, and have, for the most part, taken a vow of silence. Between the hundreds of thousands of fire-worshippers who cling to his text and the Zoroastrian brothers who defend his person, I can find very little reason that anyone would seek to harm Bishop Malvo to begin with. Then again, if the Nemesis is truly some great demon, the bishop's goodness would be ground enough. 26 Arch 948. I found these photographs in the monastery. I found dozens of them, all of the same whimsical little child, and there's a picture of a little girl. I believe she's an orphan, a foster child raised by the sect. It appears that the good father was indeed a good father. I cannot yet identify the girl, but I will. 3 Mage 948. Magic, science, science, magic. My mind returns again to my visit to the Convention of Enchanters, this time to the keynote address, where Guildmaster Barbell made veiled references, which only now are becoming transparent, to critical elements that may portend an upheaval of all learned arts in the Empire. Over on the left, we now have a picture of the last of the alchemists, Dr. Erasmus Sartorius, whose employment as Chief of Staff, Grey Mountains Asylum, research scientist, physician. He also quoted the renowned historian and perhaps oracle Osmar, who wrote in 821 GUE, "The greatest irony is this, that the ancients of our kind were nearer to knowing the truth about science than those who call themselves scientists. Science has taught us much and has given us words for old mysteries, but beneath these words are mysteries, and beneath them more mysteries. The pursuit of magic has given these mysteries meaning and provided for our people great benefits unrealized as yet by science. One day, perhaps, a great union will be formed between magic and science, and the final mysteries will be solved." Clearly someone, or something, in the Forbidden Lands, I don't know which best describes this nemesis, has ventured forward along this dark path, further than Osmar might have expected. 12 Mage 948. I continued to encounter cosmic symbols and runic writings that I cannot understand and have difficulty reproducing in this record. I believe them to be magical in nature, however, as I have determined are these sketches. Strange, I have sworn to uphold the unnatural acts in effect since 672 GUE. The unnatural acts is written as the oral law. It's uppercase U, uppercase A, which provides stiff penalty for those convicted of selling unnatural or supernatural substances, and prohibit the unauthorized conflagration of the learned arts. Yet, and I have admitted this to no one, in studying the violations of forbidden acts, I have developed a silent fascination with the enchanter's arts. Sadly, my memory is weak and always has been, and therefore my efforts to master the simplest spell escape me. That does not keep me from trying to understand what I see. I have recorded a list of spells, potions, and my attempted translations on the preceding page. On that page, we have formula for some kind of potion, magical or scientific. Who knows? Found it in the doctor's papers. PDCS formula. 1 basin boiling water, electricity to cook, or gas if you have it, hydrogen to oxygen, molten ore, oxygen to hydrogen, water to cool, helium to make sure it rises. And they have a Windcat Pie secret recipe. I also have a list of spells. Biddyju makes lies undetectable and chocolate to vaporize. Crack drastically slows time, may cause disorientation. Nickmo creates the urge to initiate a temporary relationship. Bore something wool, something about toothless creatures. Locktar causes temporal distension. Pax10 slows productivity through confusion. Gel-oo suspends subject in a gelatinous substance. Dabhu ensures complete obedience of subject, lasts 1 hour. Coast plays soothing ambient music. Zugthug automatically corrects spelling errors. Kepcom causes massive destruction to specified edifices. I'm not sure if any of those will be useful, if it's just, I don't know. 17, almost done, folks. 17 Mage 948. This asylum is a haunted place. Many levels of the complex are abandoned. Floors 2 through 19 appear completely deserted. The esteemed Dr. Sartorius, who, from the testimonies I've discovered, has done such good for so many, has left his papers in some disarray. The place looks as if it's been ransacked. It is hard to visit this place and not walk away for a time shocked. Partly the condition could be attributed to withdrawal of government funding, as the doctor's papers attest. However, there's a great deal of blood, which suggests a familiar pattern, the work of the Nemesis. Knowing nothing of the medical profession and less of science, I am learning little. I encountered an unusual chair. It must have been some therapeutic device, as... Whoa! Turn the page, and on the next page we see a picture of the chair. It looks horrifying. Sitting in it created a most pleasurable sensation, as though hundreds, perhaps thousands, of fingers were devoted to my corporeal stimulation. Yeah, it's like lots of little needles and weird stuff. After several sittings, I resolved to bring this device to the attention of the Vice-Regent on my return. I discovered some food here and made the mistake of eating it, suffering from abdominal disorder. Surrounded by medicines I dare not take, pain increasing. What is going on in my stomach? I'm beginning to wonder whether this assignment is worth the trials I'm experiencing. I can only go back to the concealed gleam in the Vice-Regent's eyes when he mentioned my reward. 24 Mage 948. I have spent the last weeks doing nothing but reading the alchemy books I discovered among the doctor's papers. Finally, I am able to decipher the signs written in the sand. They are indeed alchemical, and I will try to translate them as best I can. 26 Mage 948. Alchemy is the study of the great system of correspondences that holds our cosmos together. I'm Cosmos. Hence each of the four has a sign indicating a planet, an element, and a metal. My guess would be that the four were alchemical initiates, each master of one of the four elements. The fifth element, or the quintessence, is a philosopher's stone that caused the madwoman such excitement. These books argue back and forth about what is the precise nature of this quintessia. Is it spiritual, like love or hate, or physiological, like blood or marrow, or chemical, like ether or sulfur? What the books do agree upon, however, is the boundless power of the quintessence once possessed. Marked by a great eclipse, the making of the quintessence will bring eternal life and the dawning of a new world. If this demon Nemesis has taken possession of the Forbidden Lands as he appears to have, if this curse is his doing, then it is my hypothesis that the general and his madame, the monk and his doctor, all suffering under the curse themselves, whether for the sake of their troops or their patients, their music or their parishioners, came together to fight all hell with one power stronger, the quintessence, and then, I must further hypothesize, they lost. 29 Mage 948. The doctor's papers name a sacred place built by Agrippa, an engineer of Duncanthrax's, the Temple of the Ancients in the Eastland. I believe this place to be a place of power, of wild magic, the kind of magic that creates and destroys worlds. If there is anything left of these 4 brave alchemists, I hope to find them there. I have ventured into Frostham, and tried to speak of this temple. None would say that it existed, but their haunted faces seemed to confirm what their words could not. I found my chance in the gleaming eyes of an old drunk, swilling cheap ale on the side of the road. He had a cousin who knew a Sherpa who needed the money and could take me part of the way. A few Zorkmans later, I found myself shivering on a pack horse, staring up at what appeared to be the sheer cliffs of impenetrable rock. Now my guide tells me I am on my own. I shall strike out for the temple tomorrow. I am certain that the end of my journey awaits me there. A dark mood has overtaken me. Perhaps I, too, have finally fallen under the curse. It is difficult to say. All I know is that it is no longer the promise of fortune or promotion, neither politics nor economics, that drives me forward. Like Yorick, I now seek only simple answers, the simple truth, the simple power it wields. I will find the one power, and if I do not, I will meet the Nemesis in hell. I have made arrangements, Siobar. If something were to happen to me in there, I have cast the one spell I know by heart, the spell of the homing pigeon, which returns lost possessions to their homes, upon this little book. Despite my clumsy hand at magic, I have attempted to ensure that this narrative will return to your chambers, my lord. I pray for the day, however, that I place it in your hands myself. Yorick save us all. Vivitar. Over on the left is a letter. To whom it may concern, it is my most sincere wish to make known to all, and a lot of words are comically misspelled here, to all people throughout the empire that Dr. Sartorius, the kind and generous doctor, has done a deed so thoughtful, so helpful, that words cannot describe the thing I am trying to say at this time. My son was so sick he could not talk or read or do anything intelligent or smart like usual. We're in money problems, as we are poor, and could not find a person for helping us. Dr. Sartorius said he would fix my son with no money. Not only did he fix my son, he gave him some jobs to work at the laboratory, and my son spends all his time there now. Dr. Sartorius is the greatest kind of man I have known. His things he learns about health have saved my son. I am forever in his debt. Sincerely, Agba Skimplet. Then in the last page is a picture of the Temple of the Ancients, and over to the right is written, "The 4, they are here, dead. Nemesis hates. Killed the girl. Evil. He will not. I am dead." And now my throat has been completely destroyed. Okay, folks, I just read you the manual. I'm not sure in retrospect why I did that, but it gives you some background on who the 4 alchemists are and what's going on. The whole land has been thrown into chaos. We are apparently this guy who has come here to investigate the 4 alchemists and the evil nemesis that has destroyed them, and try to figure out what's going on, Holmes. In the next video, we will go to one of the 4 locations. Either, I think we'll go to the conservatory, but we could also go to the monastery. We could go to the asylum, or we could go to the castle, Iron, whatever it was called. Those 4 locations, we will find, that's where the 4 alchemists actually hung out. Hopefully we'll find alchemical secrets that will allow us to defeat the evil nemesis. We'll start taking some more steps in that direction and less manual reading in the next video. Mysterious JG, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.